Hey, what's going on?
No problem. Thank you for having me on.
Good to see
Hello.
you. I am well. I'm well. It's a good weekend. I do my best to push you guys. So
I mean, I'm trying something new. Trying it out. Trying it out.
I think you're on mute, buddy.
All right, all right. My basketball team won today, so that's good. My baseball team didn't, so that's bad. But I appreciate you guys having me on, and I also want to put a disclaimer out there. This is not my usual voice because yesterday I was actually at the game screaming my butt off. So anyway, I appreciate you guys taking the time to invite me on, and I'm ready to talk baseball.
Sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Adam, the chat is saying that they can't hear you at all.
I'm having a hard time hearing Alex.
All right, how's this? I see levels now. All right, good catch. Welcome. We won't do the whole intro again, but welcome everybody. You guys could hear me, nobody else could. So that good save, Jen. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's just get right to it then. Blue Jays, Yankees. Blue Jays took 2 out of 3 in New York this weekend. A bit of a pitcher's duel. I was surprised to see Clark Schmidt on the mound for the Yankees, pitching for his life out there. Really strong outing for him until we finally got to him there in the 5th or the 6th inning. Can we just start with the Alek Manoah performance? Because that's the one I feel like I care about the most. Heat check on Alek Manoah. I know we've all been kind of concerned, whether we'd like to admit it or not, through the first 5 weeks of the season for Alek Manoah. Jen, how do you feel about Alek Manoah coming off of this gutsy performance there yesterday in New York?
I mean, that was a huge start yesterday.
Yeah.
Anybody who was concerned, I think probably has had that dispelled quite a bit at this point. It doesn't necessarily mean he won't turn in a few more rough performances, but to see him walk in there knowing that the pressure was on and the whole rivalry and the chit chat between the two teams that has been taking place and so on and so forth, and coming off of several really not so great starts and being able to walk in and put it all together under those circumstances really does show, I think, his mentality overall, and hopefully shows that he's found something in terms of his mechanics.
Yeah, Garth, what are your thoughts on Alek Manoah? I agree with Jen.
I wasn't. I don't know. I saw the overreactions on Twitter. Like, don't get me wrong. No one overreacts on Twitter more than I. I get that, but I wasn't worried about Alec. I just he had a couple of rough starts. Man, he's a young guy still. Like, that happens, but I don't know. I knew he was going to go in there yesterday and shove. It's just that's how he's built. He loves pitching in Yankee Stadium. He has since his very first game in the majors, and I don't know. I knew he was going to come out, pitch great. He's like he loves running his mouth, but that's him. Like that's part of his game. Like he needs to be a vocal guy. And calling Cole the biggest cheater ever. Like if he would have went out there and shit the bed, like Yankee Stadium would have eaten him alive. But like even the Yankees fans I was chatting to on Twitter yesterday, like they all knew that he was going to go out and pitch like playoff Tanaka. Gabe on Twitter tweeted out the day before. He's like, I know Manoah's going to come in and like pitch 7 scoreless because he just fucking hates the Yankees. And he was right. Like, I don't know. I wasn't nervous. I that's just him.
Well, I mean, historically, he's always pitched the Yankees well. 7 career starts now against the Yankees. They have a career batting average against him of 157. I am worried about Alek Manoah still, despite the good outing. I think if he had had a bad outing, I would have been in full-blown panic mode. This is certainly an encouraging sign, in my opinion, but I'm still not quite ready to believe that he's going to be back to his Cy Young form for the length of the season. I think his velo was up, though, right? He was touching 95 again. So
his velo was up, and they didn't mention it on the broadcast yesterday, but I noticed like he's really had a hard time locating a slider. Like that's it's either been hanging in the zone or it's so far out of the zone that he gets no whiffs. But yesterday I noticed where he was putting his foot on the rubber, he was just like a smidge more to the third base side, and it just I don't know, it just like seemed to work. Like it just seemed like where his footing was, it just made all the difference in the world.
Alex, I'd like to hear a New York Yankees perspective on Alek Manoah. Obviously, Garrett Cole pitched well as well. It was a good matchup there yesterday. In general, what do the Yankees fandom feel towards Alek Manoah?
So I'm getting the perception that he's not liked very well, obviously, and I can see there's a building rivalry between these teams. So as far as he goes in his performance yesterday, which of course, as I may have mentioned, I was at. I think it's a combination of two things. A, he likes pitching against the Yankees as he's had prior success. And the fact that the Yankees have had this scarring issue, not just this year, but the last few years of not being able to hit the ball. You look at Manoah's stats, they're not totally eye-popping. I think he had 5 Ks through how many innings he pitched. He only gave up 2 hits. And one of the things I saw, because I was sitting in right field and, obviously the view is a little bit obstructed, but just how many times he's getting guys to swing and miss very early, like Judge, who I praised, obviously, coming into the season as the MVP candidate, really the MVP holdover. I mean, he was just early in. The timing for the Yankees hitters was totally off. So Manoah was totally in his bag yesterday. And when the Yankees did get runners on, they still couldn't score. So, I mean, if I was a Blue Jays fan, I don't know that I would say he's back to Cy Young form, but I've definitely, for you guys, it's a positive to kind of go up on, and maybe he finds his footing from here.
Is there... I know, like, it's the elephant in the room, but Alek Manoah's looking bigger than ever before. I know in the off season, I can't think of the name of the MLB Network analyst that publicly fat shamed him a little bit, right? Questioned his work ethic in the gym. It does feel like it is a little bit of an issue this year, and everybody's kind of afraid to even acknowledge that because of what went down this off season. I'm not like here to like question his work ethic, but he does look bigger this year, and I think that's got to be playing a part in his mechanics, right? Am I way out to lunch with this, Garth? Defend Alek Manoah and the biggest we've ever seen him.
Follow Alek Manoah on social media. He does not lack work ethic.
I'm not questioning work ethic, but he's bigger.
He's just a big dude, and I don't know. Like he's only going into his second full year, third year in the majors. Like, I think because he's never had more than like one bad outing in a row his entire career, like everyone was just freaking out. And it's like, has a track record. He had 2 seasons where I've never seen him throw 2 bad games in a row. Pitchers do that. Every pitcher has, like name a pitcher that's never had 2 bad starts, 3, 4 bad starts in a row. I think I am not concerned about him in the least.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is I feel like there was a very public, because Alec clapped back on Twitter about like, don't question my work ethic and the fat shaming that went on there. If that didn't happen, I feel like maybe we would be hearing more of it from the Sportsnet guys, who maybe might be more willing to bring up the fact that, like, look, he's bigger. But for whatever reason, it feels like we all kind of don't want to rock the boat and don't want to acknowledge the fact that, like, he's bigger. And with a pitch clock, he has to pitch at a higher tempo than he's ever had to before.
I don't think it has anything to do with his body type, his body size. The pitch clock, I think that has more to do with it than anything. Because he didn't come out of the minors like super accustomed to a pitch clock. He didn't he pitched 35 innings in the minors total. Like, he never pitched with the pitch clock. He's like all these other veteran big leaguers that, this is the first year they're dealing with it. And you're seeing pitchers having issues with it. It's, they've gone so many years doing it one way. And then now it's like, okay, you have to pitch differently. Like, he doesn't have the benefit of guys that have 3 years in the minors that have dealt with, that pitch clock. I think that has more to do with his issue than anything. It's more timing than mechanics. Like, the timing threw off his mechanics.
Jen, how do you feel?
I think that's entirely possible. I think there could be several different things going on here, right? I think it could be sort of that sophomore slump that we see some players go through. To expect him to pitch at the same level or better than he did last season was probably unreasonable, as the league adjusts to him and he has to therefore adjust back. I think that's factors in. Clearly his mechanics, his foot placement, his velo was down. Definitely something was off there. Whether or not it has anything to do with a change in body composition I have absolutely no way of deciding that. And even if it were, an increase in muscle mass, I don't know. I would think maybe that could alter your mechanics slightly, but you don't just go from one size to another overnight and all of a sudden you're dealing with a new body composition, right? It happens relatively gradually. And so I think you would just be adjusting as you're progressing.
Alex, do you want to weigh in on this? Because
Honestly,
I saw hashtag Tubby Toronto was trending on Twitter over the weekend as Yankees fans.
I apologize for the background noise. With that being said, Garth brings up a very good point about the pitch clock. I definitely think maybe the weight could contribute, but I think it's way too early, in my opinion, to even like maybe throw that out as a possibility. If it's May and he still hasn't adjusted somehow, then maybe you could start like expanding reasonings as to why Alek Manoah is not himself. But right now, I'm going to say that the pitch clock probably is the reason why he's just not there yet. But once again, I guess yesterday was a stepping stone for that.
All right. Well, at the very least, let's hope yesterday was something to build on. Looking at the rest of the series, Jordan Romano blew an ugly 9th inning game to the Yankees yesterday. What happened there, Garth?
He shit to bed. Like, closer. It happens to every closer, like it whatever. He had a bad game. Another guy that has a track record that I'm not super concerned. If he has another one tomorrow against the White Sox or Tuesday against the White Sox or whatever, then we can have a discussion. But, we've seen Romano have these types of games, and then he comes back and reels off 15 straight saves with no issues. So
your confidence level in Romano is as high as it's ever been.
Like my confidence in Romano is, I've never been a 10 on Romano. Like, I've never been, he's one of the 5 best closers in baseball. I'm not there. I won't get there. He's just not that guy. But am I confident that he is a good, reliever? Yeah, he's really good. And he's proved over the last couple of seasons that, whatever, a hiccup's a hiccup. If he has, 2 hiccups, 3 hiccups, 4 hiccups, well, we'll have this discussion. But I mean, I've seen Romano do this before, and then he comes back and just like shoves it down the team's throat the next outing. So,
Jen, what are your thoughts on Jordan Romano?
I'm not concerned. I mean, I think over the course of a series or, a week in baseball, we can find things to be concerned about. And we have to obviously zoom out and look at the bigger picture, right? And it's so early in the season, we're still looking at a really, really small sample size. And I think every misstep is just magnified for that reason. So as Garth said, if he blows the next one as well, or, two outings from now blows another one or something like that, or if we start to notice that his velocity has taken a dip, or that he's abandoned a pitch, or he's this or he's that, then I think we have something to talk about. I think he had a bad outing. It's not his first, but I also don't think that that's abnormal. So I'm really not concerned. I do think the bullpen in general might be a concern that needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
He was up warming today when the Jays were up 4-0 there in the at the end of the game. Cimber ultimately was the one that was brought in. I kind of was just hoping, I know it wasn't a save opportunity with the Jays up 4-0, but I was kind of hoping we would just bring Romano in to just like erase that negative outing he had the day before. I know it feels like a waste to use him in a non-save opportunity, but also that's also a little bit of just stat building if you're just worried about only ever putting him in a save opportunity. Because now I'm kind of looking at an opportunity where like maybe we steamroll the White Sox or they steamroll us, or like what happens if a week goes by before there's a save opportunity and now it's been 7 days since he's pitched and the last time he did, like he's just had a whole week to think about that terrible performance. I don't like that sort of stuff. So I would have loved to have seen them just throw him out there today in a 4-run lead.
They had a 5-run lead. I don't think I would have even had him warming up regardless of what Cimber was doing out there, because I really don't think that game was going to get out of hand. Like in any reasonable world, I don't think that game, the Yankees were going to put up 5 runs there and all of a sudden. I don't think I would have had him warming in the pen at all. And they did say on the broadcast that they've asked him, when you warm up and don't come into a game, what amount of effort does that represent? And his response was, it's about a 50% of an outing, right? So it's possible that just having him warm up and not using him means he can't go tomorrow.
Of course. I just don't even like the idea of if we bring in Cimber and then Cimber starts imploding, I don't think Romano is the guy to come in with base runners on and stop the bleeding. That's like my biggest issue with him. Garth, you touched on him not being a top 5 closer. That's my concern with Romano is like, if Cimber lets 2 runs in, and there's 2 runners on, I don't feel good about bringing in Romano. That's my opinion. Alex, I want your thoughts on Jordan Romano. He's right at the top of the league in saves. Is he the kind of closer that an opposing team fears? Like, oh, they're bringing Romano out, this game's over?
I wouldn't say that totally. From a Yankees standpoint, I would say, because our offense is not very good. I'm not gonna lie to you. I questioned the actual decision to bring Romano in. What was it? Yeah, it was yesterday. I'm like, it's a tie game. I mean, is he usually used to those type of situations where it's a tie game, unless you're like in extras or something? But I mean, we're having closer problems over here. But I can definitely tell you that Jordan Romano is better than anyone we have to kind of put up for the closer role over here. And I guess for Romano, in terms of being worried and stuff like that, it depends on the level of confidence, I guess, coming from the Blue Jays coaching staff. But in terms of, I do agree with your point, Adam, about possibly bringing him in. And I get it. Listen, it's a 4 or 5 run deficit. There's really no point. But yeah, to erase the bad outing that he had, I think it's a confidence builder. The Yankees tried doing that with Clay Holmes a couple of times, and it started working. But then obviously they mismanaged him a little bit, and he just wasn't back to himself. So I wouldn't worry too much about Jordan Romano, but also as well, I mean, just that little hint of worry. If he does keep doing things like this against better teams with better offenses and those type of situations, you may want to build up the confidence a little bit by bringing him in situations where it's not easy to blow it. Like for instance, 4 or 5 run deficits.
Well, that's fair. While we're on the topic of the Blue Jays bullpen, what should Blue Jays fans expect in Chad Green once he's back from the IL?
Ooh. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of Chad Green at all. Okay. For maybe like 2 years I was. I just think his fastball is way too flat and vulnerable. My opinion, he does have some solid other stuff, but his injury history is kind of lagging. Again, I'm not too much of a big fan of him. That's just my personal opinion.
Fair enough. Then let's look at the Jays-Yankees rivalry in general. I know every Jays fan considers the Yankees a rivalry. Yankees probably historically don't consider the Jays to be a rival. Is it starting to get to that point, Alex?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. That is for sure. Probably over the last 2 years, really since that whole thing with I think it was Yimi Garcia and Josh Donaldson happened, where Donaldson gets hit and Yimi Garcia gets thrown out of the game. But yeah, especially with this talk from Vlad Guerrero and the thing that happened on Friday with him and Rizzo chit-chatting and then Manoah's words. I wasn't really expecting a fight on Saturday, but just like, not that I want anybody to fight, but like, hey, listen, I want something to happen. But definitely, and we don't really have a rivalry with the Red Sox anymore at this point. The Rays, I mean, they're just there. The Orioles, they're starting to come up. But, every time we play the Blue Jays now, I'm kind of looking for some trash talk, and I think it's really fun.
Okay. Do you mark the series on the Jays, like against the Jays, on your calendar? Is that an opponent that you're like looking forward to? Like or is it just like another team? Who is your rivalry then? If not the Blue Jays?
It is absolutely right now on the books. It is absolutely the Blue Jays. It is absolutely the Blue Jays.
There you go. We made it, guys. The big brother is paying attention to us. Look at us go.
Well, man, all you need to do is spend 5 minutes on Twitter and it's a rivalry. Like, man, like there was more shit talk on Twitter this weekend than I've seen in a while, especially for an April series. Like, man, we were going back and forth at each other and like cracking jokes and posting memes and like, the Yankees, like a lot of the fans like to think that like, oh, well, we don't even think about you. And it's like, well, then why the fuck are you posting so much about us? Like you see us coming for you, man. Like we're in the division. We don't really like each other. The Manoah stuff, the Vlad stuff, like, man, that's good stuff, man. This is like creating like real tension between the teams. And like that's what makes a rivalry. Like, you can have a team in your division, that you play against a lot and you have some really good games. But I mean, if there's no animosity, there's no rivalry. You need that.
I think my favorite part about Vladdy just coming out and saying, I will never play for the Yankees is when I was a kid growing up watching Red Sox Yankees was always a good rivalry. And then when Johnny Damon left the Red Sox and went to the Yankees, I was just like, oh, this has just been BS the whole time. They don't actually care. So it feels good to be like, they care again. These athletes, they don't like the other team as much as I don't like the other team. That's what I like, right? So, all right, 2 different pitching staffs here between the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Blue Jays, good, healthy pitching staff, underachieving. Yankees, struggling with injuries, but it feels like your starting pitchers are overachieving. So, Alex, let's start with you. How's your confidence in the Yankees once they get their starting pitchers back? How do you feel about the replacements you've seen so far? And what's your outlook on the season like for the New York Yankees?
Yeah, so as far as the starting rotation goes, just a ton of injuries in spring training. And I'm a guy who for the last 2 years have been campaigning for the New York Yankees to get Carlos Rodon. In comparison to the Blue Jays staff, I probably would say the top 2 pitchers for the Yankees being Cortez and Cole probably outdo the first 2 pitchers right now for the Jays, but the bottom half of the Jays rotation really, I would say, outduels the Yankees. Because Cole, I mean, he's on another level this year from what I've
Having
seen.
a great year for sure.
Yesterday probably was his worst start, or maybe there was another start mixed in between. Cortez, I mean, is he like pitching like last year's level of Cortez? No, but he's still doing his thing, the spitball type, the antics on the mound. And then the Yankees just have like just mixture of bullpen scrubs, and then Johnny Brito is like the back end. Brito isn't bad. For expectations wise, I think he's doing really good. As far as Clark Schmidt goes, today he had a nice outing. And then I went to the bank and went to the store, and then all of a sudden it's 4-0 Blue Jays. And then I had to look and see what happened. But for the most part, I would say it was a stepping stone for Clark Schmidt, because the Yankees fan base is literally sick and tired of him. And I've been a guy that's kind of been, just, okay, listen, he needs his opportunity, because I hated the way he was used by the Yankees the last 3 years. Let's give him his opportunity. And then Domingo Germán, I mean, he was supposed to be out of the rotation when Rodon and Sevy came back in. And he's been a mixed bag, to be completely honest. And also at the same time, it's kind of the same issue that happened today. The Yankees are not giving run support. So I expect some good things from Rodon coming back when he does. I know that he was playing catch today or a few days ago. As far as Sevy goes, I mean, he's really good when he's healthy, but at this point, he's never healthy. And that's a question the Yankees are going to have to ask themselves. Is he worth re-signing? So those are my thoughts as far as the starting rotation goes.
Who's this Johnny Brito? What are your thoughts on him?
So he's not really a prospect, or at least he was like a bottom 30 prospect in the Yankee system for a little while. And the only reason people started catching on to him was because he had something like a 2.8 ERA in AAA last year and a 13-5 record. And, obviously there was this competition going on for the back of the rotation when some of these guys were healthy. It was between Schmidt, it was between Germán, and then you have Johnny Brito. And now he's come up, and he's honestly looked better than Clark Schmidt, which is to my surprise. He's got some good stuff, some stuff he could work on. Fastball's all right. The breaking pitches, I think, could be like very good. I think that's where he's going to find his footing.
Is he going to contribute all year?
I would like him to stay up, because I think he's got a lot to improve on, and there's a lot of potential there that's really uncovered, or at least hasn't been discovered yet. So I would think he contributes all year. And the Yankees do need bullpen help. They could use a long reliever. Like Ian Hamilton is not the answer. Jimmy Cordero is not the answer, and some of these guys between the 5th and 6th inning. So I think he could contribute past the starting rotation when eventually we do get healthy.
All right, now let's go back to Jenn and Garth here. How are we feeling about this rotation at this point? We've seen everybody have some good games, everybody have some bad games. Is this starting to feel like the rotation we should expect all year? Mostly good starts from Gausman. More often than not, a good start from Chris Bassett. 50-50 toss-up with the other two. And then what are we expecting with Manoah? Or am I way off base here?
This was a really good turn through the rotation. Somebody on Twitter named Josh Housen posted that. So in the last 2 games against Houston and the 3 games against the Yankees, Jays starters pitched 33 and a third innings with only 3 earned runs, 27 strikeouts, and 5 walks. I mean, that's a pretty impressive turn through the rotation. Only went 2-2, or sorry, 3-2. I on that, we can talk about the offense later, but all of that was a step in the right direction for every single one of them, right? Gausman, I absolutely expect to be fine, and he had that one absolutely abysmal inning last time out, and it didn't even phase him, and I wouldn't have expected it to phase him, right? He went out and was lights out. You look at the rest of the rotation, and I think you're getting what we can reasonably expect. I'm interested, as my name might suggest, I'm interested in seeing what Kikuchi can put together. I mean, his ERA is what, around 3 something? 3, what is it? I looked it up earlier.
3.8 right now.
3.8. I mean, I don't know that he can sustain that, but when you're talking about a 5th starter, right? That's better than I would expect from a 5th starter. So my questions with regards to this rotation are, if he does come back, where does Ryu fit in? Right? Because that is a question that they will have to answer potentially. And then my second question regarding this rotation is, who's the next man up if there's an injury?
Garth, you want to take that?
Okay. Well, first off, rotation, like Gausman, I'm not worried. Gausman's an ace. Manoah, not worried. Bassett, with Bassett, you're going to get some clunkers. You just are. He doesn't throw hard enough. There's going to be nights where his breaking pitches, all 9 of them or whatever the hell he has, just aren't breaking, and he's going to get clobbered. And he's always been that type of pitcher, but no, he's going to give us 175 to 190 innings this year. Barrios, he's looked sharp. He's looked like but I mean, he had outings like that last year where it's like, is he going to throw a no-hitter? And then his next start, he doesn't get out of the first. But I think the wild card this year is Kikuchi. I've said it on here before. Last year, they changed so much with his mechanics. He had that hitch where he stopped kind of like what's his name on the Yankees? Your goofball pitcher. You know who I'm talking about.
Cortez?
Cortez.
Yeah, Nestor. Yeah. He had that kind of hesitation at the top of his, delivery. They completely changed it. He didn't have an off season with the Jays last year. And I said, I think he's going to be good this year. And so far he has. As far as next man up, I don't know where Mitch White is with his rehab. I mean, I don't want, a Casey Lawrence to come up, but we shouldn't have to. We signed that guy who pitched for the Pirates last year.
Bard?
Yeah, what's that?
Luke Bard?
No. He was a starter. He pitched pretty well in spring training too. And I think he'll probably be the next guy up as far as a starter.
Oh, Zach Thompson.
Zach Thompson. That's the guy. And he's looked pretty good in AAA so far. He's probably our guy. As far as Ryu, I don't know. They're talking about maybe as early as July. If we get him back in July, he's not a bullpen guy. Ryu is a starter. I just think he'll get clobbered in the bullpen. He's not that type of pitcher. So I'm not really sure. If Kikuchi's still throwing darts, maybe we go to a 6-man rotation to end the season or something. Why not? We could lower everybody's, innings pitched and maybe be a little fresher for the playoffs. But I just think that we're in a much better shape than we were last year as far as starting pitching. So I'm more of a kind of a bullpen downer this year.
Okay, well, let's talk bullpen then. How long until Nate Pearson makes his MLB 2023 debut? Because he's looking good in AAA.
The next time Anthony Bass shits the bed. He has been.
I think Anthony Bass is a hot man on the chopping block.
His ERA is over 8. He hasn't looked good. Like he just hasn't. And I don't know. I don't like. Yes, I understand he has a track record too, but relief pitchers are finicky. Some years they got it, some years they don't. And maybe this is a year that Anthony Bass just doesn't have it. Like he has been getting hit hard. It's not like it's some FIP thing where, bloopers are dropping in. Like he's getting hit.
So Anthony Bass ERA 7.36 across 8 appearances and a WHIP of 205. Yeah, that's not gonna cut it.
That's not gonna do it.
We've been pooping on Trevor Richards, by the way, quite a bit, but Trevor Richards has looked better as of late.
Yeah,
so I think his last 5 appearances, 0 earned runs, and a WHIP
and that changeup, like for Richards, like that is. Like I would put that as a top 20 pitch in baseball. Like he is getting crazy swing and miss on that changeup.
I think if nothing else, Trevor Richards has at least done enough in the last week or so to get his name out of the chopping block. Like there's enough reason to see, okay, yeah, this is why he has a spot on the team. And that wasn't the case before this week. Jen,
do we know who still has options?
Zach Pop.
Is he the only one? I know there's. I think there's only like one guy who has options left.
I think it's just Pop.
Yeah.
I think when I checked, Tim Meza and Adam Simber both have options, but they're not going anywhere.
No.
Nate Pearson though, let's just talk his stats for a sec because he's now closing games in Buffalo. For whatever that's worth, I know leverage in AAA doesn't mean much. But Nate Pearson is looking good. His continues to get strikeouts. Anybody back on the Nate Pearson bandwagon, or have we just seen this too many times before? Because I'm annoyed with myself for being excited about Nate Pearson. I can't believe it's April 23rd, and I'm like, ooh, Nate Pearson might be good this year.
I refuse to get excited until he gets called up and does the same thing at the major league level for a sustained period of time. And that's not to knock the poor guy. It's just that we haven't seen it from him. And, for the past few seasons, every season, the fan base has gotten really excited about what he might be able to provide. And then it's been absolutely nothing. And so I'm really, really pulling for him. I'm really genuinely hoping that he can remain healthy and can, the success in the minors translates to the majors, but it remains to be seen, right? But he's doing exactly what he needs to do to get the call up. That's the best part about this so far, right? Is that what we are seeing looks very, very promising.
Well, the thing with Nate, like Alex was just talking about how Sevy's never healthy. But he's good when he is healthy. Nate's the same way. Nate pitches well when he's healthy, but he's just never healthy. The thing with Nate, though, his injury history is a little different than people that have elbow and shoulder issues. Like Nate Pearson missed 1.5 years because he took a comebacker and broke his arm. Freak occurrence. It had nothing to do with.
Last year was a write-off.
Mono was free.
Last year there was a lockout, so he didn't have a spring training, and then he caught mono and dropped like something ridiculous, like 20 pounds, 25 pounds. So it took him like I had mono. We talked about it last year. I had mono and I dropped like almost 40 pounds. I was sick for like months.
I never
before I got back to normal. So I don't. I'm with Jen. I need to see him do it like in the majors, but
17 Ks per 9 right now in AAA.
Yeah. Like he is, and he looked good in this like spring training. Like he is exactly who we thought he was going to be. But now it's a numbers thing. Like he has options. He stays in AAA. Everybody on our until we're probably going to have to DFA somebody. Like someone's really going to have to shit the bed before Pearson gets the call, because Zach Pop, they're not going to replace Zach Pop with Nate Pearson.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on from the bullpen then and touch on the shortstop position in New York. Alex, you got the kid, Anthony Volpe. What is it? Volpe? How do you say it?
Anthony Volpe.
Volpe.
But as far as Anthony Volpe goes, I actually got his signature on a baseball about a few years ago. And also, this is the same not the same, but number one prospect for the Mets as well, Francisco Alvarez. But anyway, as far as Volpe goes, the Yankees have basically lined him up to be the next future shortstop of the team. And, the last 2 off seasons, they sat out the shortstop market. They didn't get Correa. They didn't get Bogarts. They didn't get Trey Turner. And they really didn't want Oswald Peraza, who was the third baseman today. They didn't want him playing shortstop, even though that was his position, because Volpe was the guy. And the kid's, a year and a half older than me. So I'm feeling a little old, but then again, in some relation. I'm not concerned at all about him. I think there were a few people that maybe had their expectations way too high, because the Yankees pigeonholed him in a position, but it's a shortstop. He's coming up. And the last homegrown shortstop we had, guess what? It was Derek Jeter. And he's going to get those expectations from some people, not from me, obviously. I think he's gotten better. He's definitely an awesome base runner. I love him as a base runner. His fielding could get a tad better, of course. Peraza is the general better fielder between them two. But, he's not in a position where the expectations are super high. The Yankees have a ton of good hitters in the lineup. It's about them, being good hitters and getting up to their expectations as well. Like, for instance, Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu, those guys. Just the pressure is not on Volpe. And they're not going to be losing games because Anthony Volpe is doing this, that, and the third. So as far as Volpe goes, I like what I'm seeing thus far. And I think he could be really. I don't know in terms of projections where I would put him. I don't know if he's going to be a top shortstop in baseball, but he definitely could be with what we're seeing right now.
Well, speaking of top shortstops in baseball, is Bo Bichette the worst shortstop in baseball? Because that's what it feels like every time I go on Twitter. Blue Jays fans, Garth, I know you've got strong feelings on Bo Bichette. What is what does someone that doesn't watch Bo Bichette day in, day out feel about Bo Bichette?
Oh, they probably love him. Like, his face is splashed all over, Jays promo stuff, MLB promo stuff. Like, he's a great hitter. Like,
3 errors in the first week and a half this season, 0 errors since then. He's looked good defensively.
Yeah, he's made some good plays, but like even this weekend, I saw a couple of like easy throws, like routine throws that Vlad still has to reach way up or way off to the side for. Like, I'm not saying that Vlad saved them. Like, they were still accurate enough that Vlad didn't have to bail him out. But I mean, just once, like, I would love to see Vlad put his glove out and the ball just hit it. Like, it's just, I don't know what his throwing mechanics, like, there's something up there. Like, he just does not have an accurate arm. He has plenty of arm strength. He's got plenty of range. He has all the tools to be a great shortstop. Like, he's super athletic. Like, he can get to the ball. But I don't know. I don't trust his arm. And it's a position that your errors are way more amplified because you're the starting shortstop. That's the position. That in center field are like the guys on defense. And I still get that pit in my stomach every time a ball's hit to him. Like, I don't feel that way with any of our second basemen. I don't feel that way with Chapman. Like, it's just his throwing drives me insane. But I'm sure everybody around the league loves Bo Bichette because they don't watch him every game. They don't see those near misses like every game.
So, Jen, go ahead.
All of the highlights that anybody would see of Bo is of his bat, right?
Yep.
It's not of his defense for sure. And the reason they're not seeing highlights of his defense is because there aren't many highlight type plays that he's making. He's looked decent as of late. I'm not going to say that he hasn't, right? But I definitely, big moment in a big game, the ball being hit to him and him having to make a throw. He's not the guy I want making that play necessarily, right? Like in that big moment, it would make me nervous. So, I mean, and we have talked about this endlessly. I think anybody who's watching and understands a little bit about shortstop versus second base agrees defensively he would be better at second base.
Well, I mean, I keep going to, yeah, of course he'd be better at second base, I guess, if he had the time to learn the position, but also there isn't like just shortstops growing on trees that would be an upgrade over him. So that's where I come down to. So that's why I want to get Alex's opinion on this. Bo Bichette as a shortstop. Should we be happy with what we have, or some Jays fans right to be annoyed by his defensive struggles at times?
So one of you brought it up, and it's exactly kind of like my my emotions right now. My mood is, I didn't even know that Bo Bichette, that you guys were like kind of complaining about Bo Bichette defensively. I didn't know he had those issues. But of course, the bat's a different thing. Shortstop is a hard position, and someone brought it up. The errors at shortstop are amplified. That is not an easy position. The arm slot is different, all these sort of things. And then I triggered a couple of moments in my mind coming back from yesterday where there were a couple of throws that I'm like, oh my God, is he going to overthrow this or not? But I just, as a question, how long has this been going on? Is it just this year that all this stuff is amplified, or it's been just a few years? Because I know obviously there you guys have Espinal, who's a middle infielder to my knowledge. You have Kevin Biggio, who who's there as well. I mean, I want to get your guys' thoughts on that. Is it just this year, or is there any?
No,
plans?
he's definitely struggled defensively. Like he's consistently top 3 or 4 in the league in errors. I know the advanced metrics also don't necessarily look good on him. They never have. I don't think anybody expected him to be an elite defender, though. That was never the scouting report on Bo Bichette.
No,
I like his aggressiveness. I like that, like, sure, he's going to throw it into the bleachers every once in a while, but there's also times where it's like that high chopper that just clears the pitcher's mound. He's going to go hard for it, and he's going to make the throw. And sometimes he's going to beat it out when I don't want him lacking confidence, just eating it and being afraid to make that throw. I don't like any of my players to do that. So it's a trade-off, though. There are going to be some ugly throws.
It's just that he has so many of them. Like Alex was mentioning it yesterday, like he didn't make any errors yesterday, but you see his throws and you're just like, oh, it's like they're just not accurate.
He makes plenty of great defensive plays too. I think the errors outshine or feel more frequent than the highlights that he does make, but he makes a lot of nice highlights at shortstop.
No, he can totally make those plays. I've seen him do it. I'm just saying there's so many routine plays where he has plenty of time to throw and he flippantly like sidearms it and does these big looping throws over to Vladdy where Vladdy has to like stretch out of his comfort zone to get to. And it's like, why do you do that? Just make a straight, accurate throw to the first baseman like you're being paid to do. Just every play doesn't need to be a fucking highlight.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something mental going on there in terms of either he doesn't think he's going to make the throw and therefore he overthrows, or there's something not quite clicking on certain types of plays for Bo. And I know he puts in the work. I don't discredit his work ethic in any way, shape, or form at all. I know he puts in the work. But if it hasn't clicked yet, I doubt that it's going to, right? Third base did not click for Vlad. Absolutely. That was not going to work out. And look how smooth the transition to first base has been, right? The fact that he can actually bail out some of Bo's throws is incredible, to be honest. who would have ever thought that Vlad could get into the splits and do any of that? But I don't know. In terms of long term, I don't think Bo's going to be a Blue Jay past his current contract, to be completely honest. But if he was, I would like to see the move over to second base.
Let's end on this question, and then we'll move on to the next. Alex, 3 years from now, crystal ball, Bo Bichette, free agent, no longer with the Blue Jays. Do you want the Yankees spending money on Bo Bichette? Would you be thrilled, or would you be like annoyed?
I probably would have said yes coming into this show, but you guys have kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the defense. I'm going to say no. I'm going to be completely fair and honest. Before Volpe came up, we kind of had a similar situation with Gleyber Torres. I feel like there's a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences as well, because he was supposed to be like this great shortstop coming from the Cubs system. He gets traded in the Chapman trade, and the Yankees for 2 straight years just keep putting him in shortstop. They know that he's good at second base. They know that, okay, he has to make the transition, but they still pigeonhole him just to be right. And then it took till the end of 2021 when DJ LeMahieu got hurt. They put him at second, and that's what they've been doing ever since. I mean, I have my problems with Gleyber Torres offensively as well, but I guess if Bo wants to stay a Blue Jay, based on what your guys are talking about, I would say move him to second base. But if I would pass on Bo Bichette, to be honest, based on what you guys are telling me defensively.
All right, let's talk the Oakland Athletics, and then we'll change the pace, and you guys can bring your topics to the table. But news out this week: Oakland ownership group has secured a land deal in Las Vegas. Does this mean anything? My opinion is no. Garth, let's start with you. Are the Oakland A's moving to Vegas? Is this a done deal in your eyes?
Well, it's not a done deal, but Oakland having a baseball team is. I think they're gone. I think they're. I saw earlier in the week you mentioned like you think that MLB is going to want that expansion money for Vegas, and you're probably right. But John Fisher. I wrote an article about this.
John Fisher, the owner of the A's, right? For anybody not familiar.
Yeah. John Fisher, Oakland A's owner. I wrote an article about this a few days ago for Avant-Garde Press. The link's up in my Twitter. He has done more to sabotage his team than any owner I think I've ever seen. Like, he has refused to invest his own money in the stadium that, his team plays in. He has screwed around the city of Oakland about a new stadium for them for years. He's given away his best players for nothing, like literally nothing. That Sean Murphy trade last year or this offseason or whatever, that should have been vetoed by the league. It was so bad. Like, no, I'm not joking. Like, the league has the power to veto trades. I've seen it done in the NBA. It was so bad. They got nothing back for like a 27-year-old all-star catcher. Like, he infuriates me so much. I don't even like talking about him. They're on pace to win 27 games this year. I don't know if they'll get there. I honestly don't. This is the worst. This is the worst team I've ever seen. Their run differential already is in the negative. It's over negative 100. Like, they have no fucking chance of competing this season, and the team owner's done this intentionally. And if you're gonna do that to a baseball team, why are you owning it? Like, if you don't, like, I understand it's a business and you have to make money and blah 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 blah. But if you fucking hate baseball, why are you a team owner? This guy is the definition of a Nepo baby. His parents started the Gap, and he started a real estate business on the back of that money. And I'm just disgusted in the league for putting up with this. Like, the other owners, I get it. They're all buddies. They're all billionaires, and they, whatever, go on human hunting trips on private islands or whatever the fuck these people do, but he cannot be a team owner anymore. He can't. So that's how I feel about John Fisher.
Yeah, Jen, how do you feel? Are the A's moving to Vegas?
Sorry, I'm not quite clear on how Garth feels. Can you be a little more clear in your opinion, please? No.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It really is. It's obviously, we all understand that a person with money can go ahead and buy a team and then essentially do whatever they want with it because it is their money and it is a business investment. And that is how the free market works at this point. But it's bad for baseball. It's bad for the fans. It's bad for the city of Oakland or whatever city this would be happening in. You know, it's the plot of Major League without any of the jokes.
Mm-hmm. I know it is, isn't it?
That stadium is a human wasteland, quite literally. I mean, is that even safe for people to be in? The fact that human sewage, washes into the dugout every time it rains. And now the visiting broadcast booth is filled with possum poop because they've allowed a possum to move in and have done nothing
Possums,
a family, and have done absolutely nothing to try to get the possums out. I don't even know how they're allowed to have people be in this stadium and not have it declared a health code violation. And that's all because John Fisher has not worked with the city in order to get a new stadium built, right? Because he doesn't want to spend a dime of his money on this team. So I think they are moving to Vegas. That's sort of just the way that I'm interpreting,
Well, it does seem to be the general consensus.
That seems to be the consensus. And it to me, that looks like that's what's going to happen. And if you are a billionaire owner and this is your investment, and you're trying to cash in on Vegas and, the betting and all this, I don't even know. It's bad for baseball. That's all I can say. It's bad for baseball. I don't know how a league can force out an owner though. Like there are no provisions for that. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm saying there's no provisions for that. So I don't even know what the precedent would be.
Well,
the thing that bothers me the most about all of this is that he's had a good team pretty much the entire time he's owned it. Like the early 2000 A's, always strong when they had, Giambi and Tejada and like that crazy pitching staff. And then even as recently it's like the mid, what was the last time they made playoffs? 2019? Like they've been good. Yeah. And you know how terrible of an owner he is? The year he bought the team and he gutted it as soon as he bought it, had a higher payroll than he does now. There are over 10 players in Major League Baseball that earn more money than the entire team in Oakland. Like,
for me,
if the other owners are fine just handing them all the revenue sharing every year, then that's on them too. But like they must get sick of them.
Well, the A's do get penalized on revenue sharing. And if they don't get a deal secured by, I think, January 15th of next year, they're completely out on revenue sharing. I think that this is just all posturing. I know a lot of people keep pointing to the fact that this is a quote unquote binding deal to purchase land in Las Vegas. To me, all that means is, sure, he's buying land. He's a real estate developer. Land can be used for all sorts of things. There's no arena deal in place. There's no...
But even if he
other
builds
owners
a new
haven't
stadium
voted
in Oakland, that he has poisoned that well of fandom. Like they're not going back. Like they need to move from Oakland or he has to sell the team because no one is going to go there. Nobody.
Maybe the simple solution is someone from Oakland steps up, buys the team, and then he buys an expansion team and takes them to Vegas.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But I mean, like, there's a fan called the Oakland 86s, and they show up. They've had season tickets forever, and they go there and they bang a drum just like the guys in Cleveland, just like the guys from Major League. They sent an email to the team because they keep all their drums in storage at the stadium. They emailed the team and said they want their drums out of storage because they won't be going to any games anymore. And these are guys that up until like even a month ago were just like the most diehard Oakland fans you can imagine. And like, the team in Oakland is done. It's done. Like, unless Fisher sells the team.
Alex, what do you think? Oakland? They moving to Vegas, or I mean, it's one thing to say they're done in Oakland. It's another thing to say, is this franchise moving to Vegas, or is an expansion team and they're going somewhere else?
I think they're moving to Vegas. And I think a lot of what was just brought up in this conversation is not just a problem in MLB. And I think it's like the most glorified in MLB. But it kind of reminds me a little bit, and I didn't even look too much into it, but it's just something that popped in my head for football fans out there when the Rams moved from St. Louis to LA and how many fans they lost. Dan Snyder with the Washington Commanders, right? You know, that stadium is absolute garbage. But I mean, it's just such a joke. And I don't defend the owners. I do think there should have been a salary cap put in. Obviously, that was the issue in '94, and we don't have it now. So now you get all these big contracts, and that's where I say, okay, listen, you know, small market teams or whatever. But this is the other side of the issue where you can't even say it's 100% these small market teams because these owners do not want to spend. What is the legitimate guarantee if the Athletics move to Vegas that this team's going to be good, that they're going to actually spend more money? There's no incentive to do that. It's okay, you're in a better city. Like, is that's just to draw an audience? I mean, it's become such a joke within the last year. And, you know, Oakland, O.co, whatever the hell his name is, you know, it's not regarded as like one of the best stadiums in MLB. It probably never was. But then just the last few years, I mean, last year, it's just such a joke with people, you know, doing stuff in the upper deck, the Possums. Obviously, the Raiders moved out of there a few years ago. People playing Saws as the national anthem. I mean, just a complete joke. And I think baseball has, as I said, this is most glorified in baseball because half of the league is uncompetitive and filled with these type of owners. And Rob Manfred and like the whole people that make up that MLB front office is like, they're focusing on getting a new audience with the pitch clock and this thing and that thing. And we could debate about rules. I'm not going to make it about that. But it's like, you got to focus on half the league being so uncompetitive because of this type of issue. And it's, you know, it happens in different ways to different teams. The Royals existed like as a relevant team for 2 years, and they're complete trash now. Their stadium is beautiful. The Nationals, right? They won the World Series, and boom, they're done. They're the worst team in the league now. It's just such a joke. And the fact that Rob Manfred continues to like, just that everybody sits back and, you know, just lets this happen. It's a complete joke, and a shame. It's a shame for the people who live in Oakland and have actually seen this team, you know, win championships. And again, they let Bob Melvin walk right out of the building a few years ago, and now he's the Padres manager. So it's just such a joke.
And the Padres, another small market team that has an owner who doesn't give a shit. He'll spend money. He wants to win. You know, like it. I don't know. I think
I'm going to look. We could talk ourselves into circles in this. I think it's best we get back to Blue Jays and Yankees stuff. Unless anybody has anything else they want to add, I'm going to just drop this link in the comments. And for anybody watching or listening after the fact, I'll link it in the show notes. David Sampson, former Expos VP of operations, won a World Series with the Marlins. Great podcast, Nothing Personal with David Sampson. He got into this after the A's deal with the land deal in Vegas was announced, and he had a really good explanation that's way smarter than anything I could try and repeat and articulate. He's skeptical, doesn't think it's going to happen, and he breaks it down. So if you got 10 minutes after this, go click the link and watch it. But let's move on from there. Let's go around the horn then, bring our own topics to the board. Garth, let's start with you, because I know what Jen's is going to be.
Oh, okay.
I'm basing this on her username.
That's actually not what my topic's going to be.
Oh, okay, darn. I was hoping I would get
Well-
Saki Sakaguchi. But Garth, let's go ahead.
We can.
I got a good one. All right. Like we've all talked about like what has been like the stupidest move in baseball history. And I'm not saying that this is the stupidest move in baseball history, but it in a year or so it could turn into possibly one of the biggest blunders by a player ever. And it's Juan Soto. Like Juan Soto was offered 15 years, $440 million when he was with the Nationals, and he turned it down. So they traded him to the Padres. And since he's been to the Padres, like, would you guys say a half season of at bats is a decent sample size? Like,
I love this topic, Garth. I love this topic.
Okay, in 75 games, 326 at bats. So half a season, basically, half of a good season, you know. He has 10 home runs. He has 50 RBIs, which is okay. He has a 223 batting average. His OPS is 200 points lower with the Padres than it was with the Nationals. His on-base percentage is down by about 50 points. His slugging is down 150 points. Like, when you look at guys like Yelich, who have fallen off, like guys that you're just like, they're can't miss. These guys could be in a Hall of Fame one day. You got like the numbers that Yelich put up for a couple of years. You look at Cody Bellinger.
Hey, by the way, Cody Bellinger hitting 300 this year.
Yeah, Bellinger's hitting better. But I mean, you look at guys that are just like, these guys are going to be all-stars for the next 15 years. And then they just don't. They just don't happen. Like, it just doesn't happen. So Soto has another season after this one in arbitration before he's a free agent. But I mean, I know San Diego wants to they want to sign him long-term now, but I mean, he's batting 220 with you. He's batting under 200 this season. Can you give him $500 million? Like, I think Juan Soto, by not taking that deal, like if he continues to shit the bed for the next season and a bit, like he could screw himself out of like a couple $100 million. Like, it's just mind-blowing to think of like Juan Soto in that. But I mean, we're getting to the point now where like we're a half a season with him at the Padres and he has done nothing. So what are you guys' thoughts on Juan Soto?
Yeah, I mean, like Juan Soto, when he turned down that contract from the Nationals, there was talk of him being the first $500 million contract, right? And
he turned it down because he probably wanted $500 million. He felt he deserved it.
Right, but I don't think there was many people at the time who would even argue he was crazy for doing that. Like in the moment, right? Like it seemed like, he was being lowballed with a $300+ million contract offer. But yeah, he is struggling to say the least. I mean, if I'm the Padres, I don't know if I traded for Juan Soto. I clearly had it in my jotted down in my journal. Okay, we're going to have to pay him $500 million. If I'm the Padres right now, I'm going as fast as I can to a translator, and I'm making that deal for Shohei Ohtani instead.
Well, yeah.
I mean, if I've got $500 million that I was planning on spending on Juan Soto, I'm saying nope, you can walk. That's fine, and I'm giving all that money. At least I'm at least trying for Shohei Ohtani, and I'm recognize that if Ohtani says yes, then Ohtani. What's that?
There's no team in baseball that would give him the 15,440 anymore. Like they're
not off of this.
I still think he'd come close, to be completely honest. I do.
I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people like are gonna look at that Yelich deal and be like, like, are we getting the Manny Machado, or are we getting the Bellinger or the Christian Yelich? Like, sometimes guys just fall off. Like, he's still super young, and I get it. It's only been 329 at bats, but he has looked terrible. Like, he's batting under 200 this year for a guy who is like the guy that, if you were going to bet on who's going to win a batting title this year, last year you would have picked Juan Soto. The year before you might have picked Juan Soto. Like, that's the type of guy. And to be batting 200, like, oof.
The thing with Juan Soto, and it kind of like, it's been really bad since coming to the Padres. but that final season in Washington wasn't exactly good either. So we can actually expand the sample size to all of last season. And like, he came into the league, 19-year-old, kind of set the league on fire, right? His first 4 seasons, his numbers look like this. Batting average over the first 4 seasons, 301, OPS 981. You're thinking, this guy is like, can't miss Hall of Famer at this point, right? In the past 2 seasons, between half the season in Washington and the rest in San Diego here, batting average 236, and OPS is still good if you include last year, but the batting average is way down, 236 in 600 at bats. That's not good. So yeah, I'd be nervous if I was a team to hand out a mega deal to Juan Soto. He'll still probably get something. Probably, like you said,
he's going to get a monster
$250, $300 million deal, and I'm not going to feel too bad.
But he could have had 440. That's a lot of cheddar to give up, man. Like,
yeah, I wonder what's wrong with him, because something's going on.
I don't know, man.
Interesting. Alex, your Yankees, they love to spend money on.
I would not go after Soto. And I'm going to throw one into the conversation. I think you should all remember this guy because he was in our division for a few years. Speaking of a guy who fell off, Chris Davis.
Yep.
Is maybe a similar situation, but I do like the point that was brought up. Did you rather go after Ohtani? I mean, I've been noticing the last year and a half. It's just like Soto is not the player that he came in the league to be. He's a little overrated. They made the trade. I mean, Washington may or may not do whatever with the prospects they got in that trade. But I think if there's going to be a team that picks Soto up after maybe, let's just say he's on this trail of being bad for like an entire season, I think it's going to be a team probably that's a small market team that surprisingly spends just to get butts in the seats. But I would rather go after Ohtani. I would not pay Juan Soto based off of what he's performing like right now, because right now it's a slippery slope.
Well, it like signing him to a massive deal is a type of deal that could like really hamstring a team for a decade. If you're paying this guy $30-40 million for a decade, like, and he's batting 200, you're not moving that contract. Like, he's with you. Like, it's just it's a fascinating thing, because like, if you would have told me 2 years ago, like, what are the odds on Juan Soto making a Hall of Fame? I would have been 100%. I would have been like 100%. This
yeah, barring injury or some like crime involvement, it was almost
like how can he not be a Hall of Famer? Like, that's the view I had of Juan Soto, and like, and it's not even just like baseball fans. Like I'm a bit of a baseball card collector, not huge, but I mean, I collect baseball cards, and Soto's cards have tanked. Like, they have gone off a cliff. People are skeptical, man.
Christian Yelich is an interesting comparable, because like, I'm looking at his contract right now, and it's 7 years, $188 million, and we're talking about literally more than double.
Yeah, and the thing with Yelich, like, he's in a small market team who, it was shocking that like Milwaukee opened the checkbook for him. Like, Milwaukee's not a team that you're just like, oh yeah, they're going to go out and sign, free agents that hit 40 bombs a year. Like, they're not that team. And like, they're still competitive. They're really good this year, but that's because they developed really good pitching. And it sure as shit isn't because, Christian Yelich is, 2018 Christian Yelich.
Yeah. Oof.
Juan Soto still has a fair amount of red on his baseball savant page. Like, the power is there, the exit velocity, the hard hit percentage, the slugging, the walks, the barrels, all of that. The outs above average is not good, but if it might just be a matter of whatever's going on, refinding his swing or whatever it is. I have no idea, but I'm just saying it doesn't look like it's all doom and gloom to me.
It is funny because, like you said, he does have like, even like the OPS plus is 111. So like as bad as he's been, he's still above average.
Because he walks. He walks a ton.
No, I know that's the thing, right?
Like, you're not paying
with a batting average under 200. It's
I don't know. I just thought it was a fascinating thing because, like, it was so public that the Nats offered him $440 million, and we talked about it. We're just like, what the fuck he's not signing that? Like, I would have jumped at that. And I get, he bet on himself, but like he might end up losing like 150, $200 million because of this, which is insane. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting little topic.
For anybody unfamiliar with Christian Yelich, maybe two of the best seasons ever put together back to back in recent memory. Won the MVP in 2018, second up in MVP voting in 2019.
He would have won in 2019 too, but he got hurt for like the last 3 weeks of the year.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty big sample size for the first like 7 years of his career. And then nothing since. Almost inexplicable. But all right, anything else to add before we move on? Juan Soto, I think that's a very interesting. It'll be so interesting to see how some of these things play out. Otherwise, Jen, let's move on to your topic.
Okay, we can either talk about alcohol sales or we can talk about the Blue Jays second base.
I vote Blue Jays second base.
Okay. Why is it such a black hole and what's going to be done about it?
I think it's going to sort itself out. I think Witt has been hitting over 300. He's been playing really well. Espinal might be out for a few games. Biggio hasn't done shit this year. So I think.
So I was just taking a look at it. Second base position altogether are slashing 198, 257, 278 with a weighted runs created plus of 52. And mixed into that are 5 appearances by Whit Merrifield at second base, who is slashing 309, 344, 382 with a weighted runs created plus of 105. So, clearly Espinal and Biggio are not getting it done even remotely. You're right. Espinal might be out for a while. Has there been an update on that?
I haven't heard anything.
I heard X-rays were negative and there was it's only a bruise. There's no timetable on a return, but I don't think he's going to see an IL stint.
Okay. Are they trading Biggio? Are they trading Espinal? Are they sending them? What are we doing here?
I think Espinal's gone. I just don't. Well, like, what are we getting for Biggio? I mean, what are we getting for Espinal either? I don't think we're going to get much for either of those guys right now, the way they're playing. But I just feel that, I don't know. I've just had a hunch since the beginning of the year that like Espinal is kind of the odd man out there. And you saw it. He didn't play much the first week of the season, He was an all-star for us last year, and he didn't even get like the opening day start. I think if Barger keeps banging down the door and Lopez keeps banging down the door, like you have to give those guys a shot.
Barger isn't knocking down the door right now.
No, but I mean, we've seen what he can do, and like, would he be any different than putting Espinal out there? Like, Espinal has a large enough sample size now. We kind of know what type of player he is. And he had a really good first half of last season, and he's been pretty bad since the All-Star break. And I love Espinal. Like, I think he's a fun player. He's a good teammate. He works hard. But, I mean, we're in a win-now mode, and we can't have a guy going up there batting 100, with not much power. Like, it just, I don't know. I think, and like, don't get me wrong. Like, I hated the Whit Merrifield move. I do not like Whit Merrifield, but he has played by far the best so far. So you got to keep running with him. until he's not playing well.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Merrifield right now is playing well, but I think he's probably an average player. Right?
But like
he's average.
I'll take average over,
Sure.
Way under average.
I've never been high on Biggio, and I've always been sort of frustrated that he's been kept around this long and been given as many opportunities as he's been given. I had Keith Law on a podcast that I used to host, and Keith Law said flat out that Biggio was not a major league caliber player. And I just feel like, I don't know. I've always found it a little bit frustrating that the Jays have stuck with him for as long as they have. And I get it, he's been part of the organization for a while and, whatever, but it really is time for this team to move on from what they've got there.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, if I'm Espinal, I'm going into the manager's office and asking for a trade but he's also in a weird spot because, like Garth, you touched on it last year. Great start to the year. Obviously made the All-Star game, although to put an asterisk on it, he was a replacement player. Also,
yeah,
I think if Kirk didn't have the electric fan movement behind him, Espinal doesn't get nearly the votes he did for second base. I think there was a lot of Blue Jays fans stuff in the ballot box for Kirk, and then while they were there, we're like, yeah, let's give the rest of our
but
Jays
I mean, he was a managerial pick though because of the replay. There wasn't anything to do with voting. But I mean, he was still one of the top 4 or 5 second basemen in the first half of last season. Like, he played well, but literally
but then underperformed in the second half. So to my point though was that he needs regular playing time to get consistent, but also I do think the more he plays, the more he's going to be exposed as just a guy.
Yeah.
I don't dislike Espinal other than I think he's a little bit overrated. Which,
I mean, they could automatically improve production at second base by moving Bo. But
made this offseason, sure. But I don't want to see that mid-season. I think that's so
of
risky.
Course. I'm
risky. I know.
But I mean, we have to what are we doing with Barger and what are we doing with Otto Lopez? Otto Lopez isn't a kid, he's not 21 years old. We're gonna have to see what we have with these guys. And why are we just running out a guy whose OPS plus is in the 70s, in the 60s? What are we doing? Why not give these kids a shot? What are they going to have an OPS plus in the 40s?
Well, I mean, Alex talked about it with the way the Yankees handled the shortstop position, right? Just kind of biding time because they knew Anthony Volpe is the heir apparent. And maybe that's a little bit of what's going on with Toronto, where they're we got faith in Elvis Martinez to come up and be a productive infielder for us. Maybe they're high on Addison Barger now. I mean, I don't feel like Addison Barger has been a guy on the radar before last year, but certainly put his name on the map, and kudos to him in that regard. But, I mean, part of the problem with the second base position is Whit Merrifield's gone after this year, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big shakeup potentially coming in the infield next year where Merrifield's gone. If we did, let's just say, jettison Espinal and Biggio, I guess we talk about maybe having, Bo and somebody playing middle infield, whether Bo's at second or shortstop. And then also Chapman's probably gone. Alex, what do you think of Matt Chapman?
I would say about a year ago or two, the Yankee fans were actually discussing for him to play shortstop. And some people were like, yeah, let's put him at shortstop. And others were like, nah, let's not do that. He's very good defensively. His hitting, let's see. What is he hitting on the year? I'd like to get that up here. I got it. Matt Chapman, 360. So I would take him, honestly, over our third base option, that being Josh Donaldson, even though he's going to be out for another few weeks. But I like him a little bit more. I mean, I wasn't crazy about him because, okay, he just brings the defense, and you have a lot of guys who do that. But if he could hit a little bit better, and I know I think it was last year or the year before, he really struggled in Toronto. But, he's a guy I like. I don't necessarily have a problem with him.
I think we should re-sign him. He's not. Everyone seems to like he's been around a while, so everyone thinks he's old. He's not. He's got some years left in him. I don't know if he'll take a 4-year deal. I think he's probably looking like this is the time where this is his contract. Like this is it. This is the one where he's gonna like get that Semyon type deal. The big money, whatever. So I don't know if we can, but I love the stability he brings. He's a good middle of the order bat. Like,
would the Yankees be in on a Chapman sweepstakes this offseason, do you think?
To be honest with you, I'm gonna say no, because I read an article the other day that said something along the lines that Oswald Peraza is going to be Donaldson's replacement. And I mean, I don't like that trade already. And to be honest, I wanted Peraza to be the future second baseman. I guess that's not the case. And that's, they don't want him hindering on certain players. But what I will ask is this, because it sounds like some familiar stuff that's happened with the Yankees, of course, with failed prospects and all this sort of stuff. I mean, last year was a manipulation of service time with the whole Peraza stuff. And we were just, as Yankee fans, pissed about it. Can Biggio or Espinal play any other positions in terms of like being at least versatile as a bench player?
Yeah, they're both utility guys. They play outfield and they mix and match all over.
I was about to say, because I'm like, unless it's too far rotten down that these guys are just not good. Because I mean, I didn't know what Espinal's expectations coming in the league were. Obviously, Biggio has that thing hanging over his head. A, he's a prospect. B, he's the son of a Hall of Famer. So, I mean, putting him as a bench player, I guess to some people may be like, okay, well, you might as well just DFA him then.
Well, both guys have versatility. Like Espinal is our backup shortstop, our backup third baseman. Biggio plays some first. He can play some corner outfield. Like, they're not complete write-offs, but both of them have struggled so bad with the bat in the last little bit. Like Biggio used to have a high on base percentage just because he walked a lot. He's not doing that this year. He's striking out a ton. And like Espinal has just, he's as close to an automatic out as we have on our bench this season. And like Espinal's, he's a solid defender. Like, he's got great defensive metrics in all three of those positions, like third base, shortstop, and second base. But we have guys in the minors that can play great middle infield defense and hit like shit. So why not try to give them a shot and see if there's something more there? Like, Espinal and Biggio aren't kids. Like we keep talking about how, the Jays are a young team. Biggio is what, 27, 28?
Yep.
Espinal's right there with them. Like, these aren't prospects anymore. Like, these are guys that have been in the league for a fair amount of time, and they just haven't produced. So I don't see the point of keeping them on the roster when we have guys that are in the minors who could honestly do the exact same job right now and maybe more. But we will never know, because there's a roadblock, because Espinal and Biggio have this lock on roster spots.
Well, it's funny with Espinal, and from our comment section, Delshimers brings up the fact that Espinal used to be a 300 hitter and then bulked up to get more power. But so his first, I guess, call it full season in the bigs at age 26, he hit 311 through 92 games. And then, if you guys remember the off season, him showing up in spring training last year, just looking absolutely jacked. And we kept referring to Espinal's special diet with a wink to steroids, right? But I mean, batting average dipped to 267. He did show a little bit more power, hit 7 home runs versus 2 the year before. But like, that's something I've been seeing with Espinal this year, even just watching him around the bases, is he looks stiff. Like, he doesn't look like the agile, the nimble guy that was like exciting to watch when he first really like broke onto the scene. But I don't know.
That's the thing. We don't need Espinal to hit 20 bombs. We need guys on base for the other guys to hit bombs.
Yeah.
Like, he was never going to.
I don't know why somebody would want to change their approach when their approach was working.
But again, for me, this is like the biomechanics issue with like Alek Manoah of like getting bigger. And like, I'm not saying he's like doesn't have a work ethic, but like if he keeps putting on muscle mass, like maybe lean up a little bit streamline things, because this Espinal, I think, is a good example of a guy who like got bigger and stronger, didn't help his game necessarily, or hasn't, right? So I don't know. I don't want to turn this back into a Manoah conversation though. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is at second base, Jen. It's because we are kind of in a pickle where like we have to figure out what's best for this year, but also like we'd be negligent, or the management would be negligent to not also look beyond this year, and they got to have something ducks in a row wise. I don't know. All right, we'll throw to Alex here in a second, but Alex, we have a super chat from YouTube. Michael Borland says, "What's Alex think of Vlad Steinbrenner?" I assume that's an autocorrect for Hal Steinbrenner.
Of course. So, taking my team bias and my fan bias out of it, the player of Vlad Guerrero Jr., absolutely, he's an awesome player. It was a few years ago when he hit someone like 40 home runs. I said this guy should be the MVP, not Ohtani. Now, obviously, you factor in the trash talk and everything else. I'm not a guy that really says, okay, you can't trash talk. Listen, he obviously he's a Hall of Famer's son. He does a little bit more trash talking than his dad did, whatever. And last year, many people don't know this, but I actually had the Blue Jays go in the World Series. And I thought based off of last year and some of the moves that the Blue Jays did, I'm like, they should be at least farther than the Yankees. I had the Yankees missing the playoffs last year, and obviously that didn't happen. A couple of things happened, whatever. And I just feel like the Blue Jays just never they talked a big game, but they never walked it. And to me, I will not respect, and I don't even know if I can say respect, but I don't take Vlad seriously. And individually, he's an awesome ball player. He's great for the game of baseball. But in terms of, I look at it a team perspective, his team and himself need to do a little bit more. Then I could go out and say, okay, we can't taunt this guy anymore. We can't do that because Jose Altuve, all the F Altuve chants, blah, 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 blah. That went to crap because Altuve and the Astros own us. I'm going to sit here and say that. But right now, Vlad is not on that level, but taking every ounce of rivalry bias out of it, I think Vlad is a hell of a baseball player.
All right. Fair enough. Alex, what's your topic for today? Let's get to that.
So this happened with the Yankees and the pitcher wasn't ejected, but it happened with the Mets and the pitcher was ejected. Do you guys think that Max Scherzer had an illegal substance on his hand or wherever it was spotted? And do you think the MLB should be a little bit more discreet on measurements of what's too much rosin, what's too much this, what's too much that? Or should they play with like a certain substance a little bit more than rosin? I mean, I want to know your guys' thoughts on that.
Good question.
Personally, personally, what did Herman should have been tossed. They asked him to wash his hands. He came back out and it was still sticky. Should have tossed him. That's like, if you want to go by the book. And the same thing with Scherzer. That's fine. But the thing that bothered me about it was the umpire said it was the level of stickiness. Okay, is there a stickiometer? Like, how do you measure that? You're asking an umpire to basically judge the stickiness. Like what? Just if you think it's too sticky, toss them. That's fine. But like the way the umpire said, well, I have never felt a hand that was sticky or blah blah blah. It's like that's not a good answer. You are making a subjective guess at how sticky it was. Like you don't have any numbers, you don't have any data. You're just saying, oh well, it seems like it might be stickier. I don't think Max Scherzer isn't cheating. The guy's got a Hall of Fame career. He's dominated for the past 15 seasons or 18 seasons or however long he's been in the league. Like it was probably rosin and sweat, and the umpire decided that he wanted to be the star of the show that day.
The stickier comment though was made in reference directly to Scherzer because they, I think, inspected his hands 3 separate times and they had him wash his hands twice, I believe. And that third inspection when they said his hands were stickier than they were during the first or the second inspection. That's what got him tossed. So they weren't I'm just saying they weren't comparing necessarily to how they remembered somebody else's hands feeling from 2 nights before. It was literally first, second, third. By the third time we're looking at you, you're even stickier than you were before. We gotta do this.
Like MLB needs to just like they need to come up with some kind of standardized thing. Like this is ridiculous. Like the balls are all different, the stickiness is all different. Like this game's been around 150 years and we never had like such just petty little bullshit about whether the ball is different. And it's like, just say, okay, this is what you can use. These are the balls we're going to have. We're not like, and unless a manager says, like, we think that guy's using some sticky foreign substance, just let him go.
But even though rosin's allowed, it is within the rules that it can only be used sort of to a certain degree, or you only used on the mound, right? It was clumpy on his hands. That like there are some rules already in place, and it is sort of at the umpire's discretion. But in my opinion, they were essentially doing what MLB has been asking them to do. Like they were, it is still a judgment call, but you can't standardize how a guy's hands feel. It's absolutely impossible to do that.
Exactly. So why are the umps like the umps shouldn't be the harbinger, like the guys who dictate what's sticky enough to get tossed out of a game. Like that's what I'm saying. Like they want to take the stickiness off of pitchers, but they can't. Every person sweats differently. Every person like chemically is different. Like it's just, how are you going to do it? So if he's only using rosin and he's only using sweat, and they could take a sample, and if it comes back that there was some spider tack or something else, well then fine. But if not, then fuck off. Let him pitch.
But like I said, they do have a rule with regards to even how much the rosin can be used. So I don't know. To me, it was third time's a charm, right? Like 1, 2, 3, three strikes, you're out. They didn't do it on the first. They didn't do it on the second. Like they did give him the benefit of the doubt. And if the problem got worse,
but the
then
thing is,
I feel like they
be consistent. Like Romano should have been tossed.
I don't know how many times they inspected him. That I actually don't know.
Well, they asked him to go and wash his hands. He came back and they checked him and it was still sticky. Like, toss him. Like there has to, if you're gonna make this a rule and you're gonna enforce it. Like I just the way that it was so close together. Like Herman happened, and a couple days later Scherzer happened, and just the way that they doled out the ruling, it just seemed like it was wrong.
It is a gray area with lots of interpretation, and that's the problem, right? Like I think it was Jenn, you said, like the rosin, like people are going to just have naturally sweatier hands or stickier hands, or there's too many variables to just. And then when you have an umpire's interpretation on top of that, it's just like, what are we even doing here? It's so ridiculous. I don't think Max Scherzer was cheating. I think Scott and I disagreed on this, but I think he'd be crazy to be this close to a first ballot Hall of Fame career. And then at the very end, when I don't think he's playing for another payday. Like I think he's made his money at this point. So I don't see any motivation for him to be like, I got to go out there and cheat now. I got to go risk my first ballot Hall of Fame status over sticky stuff. I think that's insanity to me. I can't wrap my mind around that. But I
don't think he was using anything other than rosin. No. To be honest, but I think the umpires were following the letter of the law. So I don't know. So
but I mean, if you want to take the judgment out of it, why not make the balls already sticky?
Well, we talked to the pitching ninja and he said that's coming.
Yeah, well, don't they already have that in the Japanese league or the Korean league?
I think you're.
I think one of those leagues has like a pre-sticky ball.
here's a question. If the Domingo Germán thing didn't happen, do you think Max Scherzer maybe doesn't get ejected? Because that's kind of how I feel is not necessarily a public outcry, but like there was stuff being like, like, look how ridiculous this was. How come he didn't get ejected? And then all of a sudden, I feel that had to have been a factor on the back of their mind. Like, hey,
and maybe it came down from the top.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
I think it was definitely a factor because it was just a couple days later, like 2 days later.
And again, you're talking about a New York team. There's a bunch of similarities there. Alex, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm absolutely, and even with Yankee bias, I think Germán should have been tossed. I mean, the fact that like the umpire had to give him simple instruction as to what to do. I mean, you got to know better. So he probably should have been suspended. I apparently also as well, because my best friend's a Met fan. He was talking to me about the whole situation. He said apparently that Scherzer was washing off some stuff with alcohol in front of an MLB officials to make sure that he wasn't doing the wrong thing and he gets tossed anyway. I mean, I don't know. It's just ridiculous. But I do think that if the Germán thing doesn't happen, Scherzer probably does not get ejected.
Well, I mean, you mentioned an interesting point about like the alcohol wash. Do you think that maybe becomes a thing where it's like everybody just does an alcohol wash as they're heading onto like every pitcher? I mean, just does an alcohol. Well, here's your sanitizer, like you're going into Walmart during COVID, right? Like, okay, now you've got bare hands, and now you go out there, apply your rosin as necessary. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. I don't know. Is there room for? Can we acknowledge that not necessarily cheating, but an ejection was still warranted? Like if it is a third time's a charm, even if you are just using rosin, it's still like Jen said, like it's just too sticky for whatever reason.
It's within the rules. So
can we come to a place where there is you're ejected but not suspended, or does that clash too much? Do those two concepts clash, right? Can there be a point where it's like, hey, I don't know what's going on with your hands today, but you're way too sticky. You can't pit. We warned you 3 times. You're out. We're not going to suspend you, but like this is a joke for tonight.
Take a swab of his hands and go get it analyzed and see what's on it. If the guy gets ejected, he gets his hand swabbed. If it comes back in a couple days that he used spider tack, well, he gets a suspension. If it comes back, like it's not going to take them a full week, so get it done before the next start.
Do you think that would actually be detectable?
Was that?
Would that be detectable?
Well, I don't see why not. They get fucking CSI guys on it. I don't know, man. Like they have the money.
I don't know enough about science. All I know is
I'm
the
sure
CSI
if they
TV shows
and just off its hands, they could tell what it is. So if it comes back that it was just rosin and sweat, no suspension. Fine, get ejected, whatever, deal with it.
Okay. But Here, I guess here's where I'm going with this like swab the hands, let's detect it thing is like steroids has been we know what we're testing for. We don't know how to test for things we don't know what to look for. You know what I mean? Like, so if we're running a test on a hand substance, is there a chance for like that wouldn't be conclusive evidence? Like we swabbed his hands, it didn't have spider tack. It had something else that we couldn't detect, but maybe it was his roast beef sandwich from earlier in the day. Or maybe it was something he's cheating. What are
we even talking about now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just nonsense. Like,
no, it's not. It's the credibility of the game. Like, something needs to be done, and I don't know what it is, but this is the problem the MLB's having.
Okay, I would say this. I would say this. If rosin is allowed, but they have a rule that there is such a thing as too much rosin. And when it's clumping up on your hands and this and that, maybe that's what they've decided is too much rosin. I don't know. Okay. But if it gets to a situation with, say, Max Scherzer washed his hands a bunch of times, he's been warned already, it's all clumpy, this and that, they toss him. If he's only been using rosin, then you don't suspend him. You toss him because it's still within the rules. They can toss a guy for using too much rosin, but you don't suspend him. You could swab the hands to see if it's something else. And then if there was, suspend them based on that. does MLB really want to be sending samples off to a CSI team and getting this done? I don't know.
MLB wants to just
far-
bury its head in the
does-
sand over everything.
No, but does Max Scherzer want to get suspended for using shit that was supposedly allowed? Like that's where we're at. Like they have to come up with some type of uniformity before like this is just getting stupid. We're what 4 or 5 years into all this like sticky thing and the balls are wrong. Like fix it. MLB, you are a $1 billion corporation. It's called baseball, and you can't even decide the ball, like the most important part of your fucking game, and you can't figure out a way to make it uniform so that everyone has a playing field, like a level playing field. Like, just get your shit together.
Well, we aren't going to solve this today. I do have one topic of my own to end on, but before we do, let's go around quick answers. Does this and should this impact Hall of Fame voting for Max Scherzer? Garth?
No.
Jen? No. Alex? No.
Absolutely not.
I don't think it should. I think it might. I think he still
Well,
gets in, but I think
you're
there's
gonna
going to
get-
be writers who are going to be like, they're
gonna
looking
get
for
one
an
of those
excuse to
assholes
not
who
be.
just- Yeah, you're like Ken Griffey Jr. didn't get 100%. Like, come on, like you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be some asshole who doesn't think that he's a Hall of Fame pitcher, but he's
Mhm.
getting in.
There'll be somebody who doesn't vote for Shohei on his first ballot.
Yep.
There's always that guy.
Always looking to make a name.
Well, that's just people in general, right? It's easier to sound smart if you're criticizing Top Gun Maverick than if you're just agreeing that it's awesome, right? Okay, my topic is Bryce Harper coming back from Tommy John, maybe faster than anybody
early.
ever. Going to play first base.
Yep.
What are the expectations here? What are your thoughts on Bryce Harper? And I will just go first and say Bryce Harper, up until maybe the last 2 years, has been one of my most hated players in baseball. I don't even know why, but he's quickly becoming like a guy that I'm having a hard time disliking. So what's everybody's thoughts on Bryce Harper, this move to first base, which is probably for the rest of his career at this point? Full-time DH last year. What's not to love about Bryce Harper? Alex, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on Bryce Harper becoming a first base? Can he do it? Is he full of himself to think he can just learn how to play first base? 'Cause, first base has the reputation of being like, well, it's the easier position defensively, right?
It's incredibly hard.
It's not a guarantee that he can just be good at first base, is it? Or is it?
It's definitely an interesting situation. I do share the same sentiment with you, Adam, because I didn't like Bryce Harper the first few years he was in the league. I think it was a point of maturity to where when he got to Philly, things started to calm down. It was the manager before Girardi, then Girardi came in, and now it's Rob Thompson. And I respect Bryce Harper a little bit more. I always think back to when the Yankees could have signed him and then done a couple of other different things. The thing with the first base move is, I'm looking at his age. He's 30. He's coming off of a major injury. And what do you do when Rhys Hoskins comes back? Is my thing is. So do you move him back to right field? I think he's trying to be a team player and at least semi-versatile, but I'm not going to lie. It's kind of strange.
So do you think that this might just be a rehab stint at first base? And by next year, he's back in right field?
I think it's a trial spin, take over for Rhys Hoskins, and then he'll be back in the outfield next year or DH.
Jen, what are your thoughts?
I think playing first base gets him back on the field faster. And I agree with the team player element. I personally have always loved Bryce Harper. I think he's an incredibly special ball player. Early shenanigans included in all of that. I think he made baseball fun. I think he made it interesting. In addition to his talent, the rest of it all, just, I don't know. I've always appreciated him, and he is one of the most physically impressive human beings I've ever seen. Just seriously, if anybody can come back and sort of make that transition, I think it's him.
Garth?
Love Harper. Love him. The reason that everyone hated him was because he fucking killed your team. That's why. Like, he's an amazing ball player. And he saw a spot where their really good first baseman, Rhys Hoskins, got hurt. He's out for the season. And he was like, you know what? I can get on the field a hell of a lot faster if I play first base. And their team is struggling right now. They went to the World Series last year, but they're struggling. You lose a Harper, you lose a Rhys Hoskins. Like, those are two big bats that are very, like, they're impossible to replace in season. Like, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, man. Like, hey, if he can do it, why not? And they need him. Like, last year in the playoffs, it just felt like Rhys Hoskins said, you know what? Like, we're going to the World Series. I don't give a shit what happens. Like, just put it on my shoulders. And he did. He balled out last year. I love the guy. And man, if he's willing to like I don't think he's a full-time first baseman. I think he goes back to a corner outfield. Like, this is a throwing thing. This isn't a hitting thing. This isn't a leg thing. This is him not being able to throw. And, like, he's going to have to make a few throws at first base, but, you're not expecting him to load up, and gun out guys at home plate. You just need him to catch the ball. And if anybody can do it, it's him. He is, apart from Mike Trout, one of the most gifted baseball players I've seen in the last 25 years.
Yeah, I'm with you. The sentiment that if anyone can make the transition to first, if there's a guy who's going to put in the hours watching the game tape, picking the brain of whoever, he's a guy that can do it for sure, right? If it's Teoscar Hernandez in the same situation, maybe I question that. I think this is a forever thing. Rhys Hoskins, free agent next year. From the Phillies, I got a lot of money invested in Bryce Harper. Maybe I'm just looking at a power first baseman who's like, could win a Gold Glove at first base. Like, by the time he's in his mid 30s, some of the other contenders, the Paul Goldschmidts, are going to be retired. Freddie Freeman's going to be retired. Like, I don't think it's crazy to think Bryce Harper wins a Gold Glove at first base by the time it's all said and done. Anyways, I hate to do this, but we're ending the show with love for Bryce Harper. This is not an ending I ever saw coming in my life. But thank you to the three of you for joining me. Joel Haycomi was stuck on the phone with Hollywood all afternoon. Couldn't get off in time to join the show. But we appreciate everybody anyways. Alex, let's start with you. In case anybody is curious about more Yankees content, it's always good to keep track of what your rivals are up to. So where can people find more of you, Alex? And thank you for taking the time today.
So I appreciate you guys inviting me on. It was a fun discussion of all sorts of MLB. I have a YouTube channel, Big Blue in the Bronx, that is currently live. My brother is doing a live stream with my best friend who happens to be a Mets fan. But you can find Yankees content on there, Yankees shorts. We're doing memberships now, so that's all fun and games. I'm most active on Twitter, though, Be Blue in the Bronx, and looking forward to possibly doing this again.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back next time. The Jays and Yankees bash heads. I'm sure we'll work something out. So thank you so much, Alex. You say Kikuchi, Stan. What's going on, Jen?
You can follow me and my Yusei Kikuchi stand-em at baseball_Jenn with 2 N's, since it's not up there for people to see.
There you go. All right. And Garth, how about yourself?
Same. You can find me on Twitter, Garth Orgy. I just started writing for it's actually like a leftist like news newsletter, but I'm going to be writing for them, but focusing a lot on like the politics of sports, sports ownership, sports. So I got a new article up right now about the Oakland A's situation. I have another one coming soon about Phil Jackson putting his foot in his mouth today. And I got another big deep dive coming on the issues with sports gambling. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Be sure to send us the link when you get those articles out there, and we'll retweet it and all that fun stuff. Everybody, grounds crew in the live chat, thanks for tuning in. We'll